Okay, this video is about solving two-step equations where two things are happening to the variable. So let's go ahead and start with some examples. You need an extra sheet of paper and you'll need your calculator. So make sure you have both of those things handy before we start working these out. We're going to start with the first one, which is O, and it says 4y minus 9 equals 15. Here's what we know. There are two things happening to the variable. I'm going to write it over here. And the two things that are happening, hopefully maybe you're starting to think about it yourself. Notice that 9 is being subtracted. And also notice that 4 is being multiplied because the 4 and the y are very close together. When there's no gap and there's no space, then that means multiplication. So the two things that are happening to y is it's being subtracted by 9 and being multiplied by 4. Because don't forget, we don't care about what's happening on this side of the equation at all. We only care about the side that has the variable. So to fix subtracting 9, we're going to add 9. Let's do it back. So we're going to add 9. And the opposite of multiplying by 4 is going to be dividing 4. So we know that we're going to add 9 and divide by 4. But the question is, which one do I do first? And it does matter which one you do first. There is an order that you have to follow. So let's go over that first. Okay, so think back to 6th grade, or maybe you're in 6th grade, and one of the things that you learn is the order of operations, which is literally the order that you do the operations in the problem. And they set it up as an acronym to help you memorize it, and it's please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. But what it really means is the P stands for parentheses, exponents, E for exponents. The thing that I think most kids get confused about is that you can do division before multiplication. It doesn't matter. It matters only to the extent that you do them in the order of the problem. And the same thing is true with addition and subtraction. So I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about. You won't always do multiplying before you do dividing. And you won't always do adding before you do subtracting, because the problems could be different. So I'll show you that. Okay, in this example, if we look here, we have a division. Well, I'll write it over here. We have division here, and we have multiplication here. We, in this case, would do the division first because it comes first in left to right order. So even though M comes first in the order of operations, like multiplication comes first in the order of operations, we wouldn't do it first in this problem. We would do 24 divided by 4, which is 6, and then we would multiply by 5, which would give me 30. So I just wanted you to clarify that even though they put it in the order of M before D, it does not necessarily mean that that's going to happen. Multiplying and dividing are the same operation. You do whichever one comes first in the problem first. And adding and subtracting are the same operation. Subtracting is nothing more than adding a negative number. So just clarify that. We really only have 4 things that, we have parentheses, exponents, multiplication and division, and addition and subtraction. So we really only have 4 steps here, even though they list them out as 6 separate steps. So, to recap, the order of operations that you learned possibly years ago is coming back into play, but this time we're going to do the reverse order of operations. Okay, So notice that I call it SADMEEP, even though I know it wouldn't be how you would say it, but it helps me memorize it. It's just PEMDAS backwards. So now we're starting with addition and subtraction, then division and multiplication, then exponents, and then parentheses. Notice how it's the exact opposite order. So when there's a subtraction or addition in the problem, we're going to do that one first. Then if there's any division or multiplication, we're going to do that step second. If there would happen to be any exponents, we're going to do that step third. And if there are any parentheses, we're going to do that step fourth. So, we're going to go back to our original problem. Looking at the problem, I am going to, based on what I have written here, I'm going to be adding 9 and dividing by 4. So that's A for addition and D for division. So I'm going to write SADMEEP down here, and I'm going to decide which one I need to do first. Which one comes first in SADMEEP, A or D? Well, A comes right before D, so we're going to add first and then divide. We literally follow the order of SADMEEP every time. Whatever SADMEEP says, that's the order that we do it in. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. I'm going to draw my line. I'm going to add 9 to the 9 and to the 15. These 9s go away because a negative 9 and a positive 9 become 0, so they won't be there anymore. And I'm left with 4y equals 15 plus 9. Well, 15 plus 9 is 24. So I've done part of the problem. I've gotten rid of my 9s. Notice that they're not in the problem anymore. But 4 is still there, so I still need to work that out. And if I look back on what I said I was going to do, I said I was going to divide by 4 on both sides. So I'm going to divide by 4 on both sides of the equation. These 4's go away, and it leaves me with y on this side. And then I have 24 divided by 4, which if you put that in your calculator, don't forget the numerator goes in the calculator first. 24 divided by 4, and it should give you 6. So the answer to this equation is y equals 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to check our work, and we're going to see whether we're right or wrong. Notice that we said that the answer was y equals 6. If that's true, then I can put a 6 anywhere there's a y. So instead of having a y here, I'm going to erase it and put a 6. And what that does is it replaces y with 6, of course, but notice that I have to multiply. This does not become 46. So this is wrong, okay? It's not 46. It's 4 times 6. So 4 times 6 is 24. And then I have minus 9 equals 15. My question is that true? You know, is this true? 24 minus 9, does that equal 15? So take 24 minus 9 in your calculator and see what that gets. And if it's 15, then we're right. So 24 minus 9 is 15, and because they're equal on both sides, then this is the right answer. Y is definitely 6. Okay, we're going to do the next one. And I want you to try to fill out your charts, try to decide what's happening to x. Don't forget we only care about the side with the variable. So this is the only part we care about. We don't care about this plus, this equals negative 5. You know, that side of the equation is kind of irrelevant to us at this point. So what I notice is that 7's being added, so plus 7. And what I also notice is that 6 is being multiplied. So 6x is multiplying because they're right beside each other. There's no gaps. So x is being multiplied by 6 and being added by 7. And then we have to decide what we're going to do about that. What's the opposite of adding 7? Well, it would be subtracting 7. And what's the opposite of multiplying by 6? Well, it would be dividing by 6. So I'm just going to write them down here. I'm going to subtract 7 and divide by 6. The question is, which one comes first? So I have subtraction and I have division. I'm going to write sad meep down here because that is what I follow. This is the order that I need to follow in order to get the right answer. So S comes before division. So subtraction comes before division. So I'm going to subtract first and then I'm going to divide. So now I know what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract 7 from both sides. Then when I get that done, then I'll divide 6 on both sides. So we're going to subtract 7 and subtract 7. So I'm going to cross these out. These are no longer there. I'm going to draw my line down my thing. So on this side, I just have 6x equals. This is where it gets tricky. Some kids have a really hard time knowing, the negatives and the positives. And my advice to you, if you're confused, is to just use your calculator. Just put it in your calculator exactly the way that it looks. Don't change anything. Don't put a plus. Don't do anything like that. Just put -5 minus 7 in your calculator, and it will give you the right answer. So -5 minus 7 is -12. Now that I've taken care of the 7's, you can see that they're no longer in the problem. I still have to take care of the 6. And if you forget what we said we were going to do, look in your chart. We said we were going to divide by 6 on both sides. So divide by 6 on both sides. These 6's go away. And I'm left with x equals, and then -12 divided by 6. Don't forget, this literally says divided by. That's what the fraction bar says. So this reads -12 divided by 6. And when you put that in your calculator, you're always going to put the number on top, the numerator, first. So your calculator, you should put -12 divided by 6. And whatever that is, that'll be your answer. And -12 divided by 6 is -2. So x equals -2. So I'm going to try the next one, and I want you to try this by yourself first, and then I'll do it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this t with an x, because I think a t looks like a plus, and it doesn't matter what I make it. I can make it anything, C, B, Y, but I really don't like t's, so I'm going to change that variable t to an x. So pause the video and try to work it out yourself and see what you get, and then I'll work it out and you can see whether you got it right or wrong. Okay. So the two things that are happening to x. X is actually being multiplied by -9 because they're side by side, and there's no gaps and nothing like that. So x is being multiplied by -9, and it's being added by 2. Oops, I wrote that in the wrong place. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by -9, because that's the opposite of multiplying by -9. And we're going to subtract 2, because that's the opposite of adding 2. So again, we're going to divide by -9 and subtract by 2. So divide is division and subtraction is S. If I write sad meep down here, subtraction comes first. So I'm going to subtract first, and then division comes second. So I'm going to divide second. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is subtract 2 from both sides. And these 2's go away. They're not there anymore. And you'll notice on this side, I just have -9x equals, and then I have 56 minus 2. Well, 56 minus 2 is 54. And I'm going to scratch that out because I've already taken care of that. Notice now the only thing left to take care of is the -9. And we said we were going to divide by -9, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to divide each side by -9. And these -9's go away. And I'm going to get x equals -54 divided by, positive 54 divided by -9. So in your calculator, you're just going to put 54 divided by -9, and you should get -6. So hopefully you got that. And we're going to keep working them out. If you think you're ready to work them out yourself, then go ahead and then you can let me look at them when you're done. I'm going to work out maybe 3 more on the video, and then the rest you can do by yourself. Okay, in this problem, they've written it backwards, which we could rewrite it if we want. We could write it like 7b minus 6 equals -69, and that's the same thing. Notice all I did was just move everything here to this side and everything here to this side. I didn't change anything, so we'll just leave it like that. It doesn't, either way it's fine. The first thing that I notice is that v is being multiplied by 7. And another thing that I notice is it's being subtracted by 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide by 7 and add 6. The question is, which one do I do first? So I'm going to write sad meep down here. The very first thing I need to look at is, of course, I have division and I have addition. So which one of those comes first in my order of operations, or my reverse order of operations, is addition. So I'm going to add first, and then I'll divide next. So I'm going to add 6 first, and get rid of that, and then I'll be dividing. Notice that these 6's go away, they're not there anymore. And I'm left with 7b equals, in your calculator, if you take -69 plus 6, you will get -63. And so the 6's are gone. Now I only have the 7 to deal with, and I need to divide by 7. These 7's go away, and I get v equals -9. So hopefully you got v equals -9 for that problem. Notice that this is exactly like the last one where they've written it backwards. If that bothers you, feel free to rewrite it and just put everything that was on the left on the right and everything that was on the right on the left, and that's fine. You can rewrite it. And once I do that, the first thing that I see is that 15 is being subtracted. The next thing that I see is that x is being multiplied by negative 2. So now I need to decide what I'm going to do about it. And the opposite of subtracting 15 is adding 15. And the opposite of multiplying by negative 2 is dividing by negative 2. So down here I'm going to write SADMEEP. And I'm going to be adding 15. So that's addition. So I need to add first. And then I'm going to be dividing by negative 2. So that's second. So the very first thing that I need to do is add 15 to both sides. Erase this. Notice that these 15s go away. A positive 15 and a negative 15, they eliminate each other. And I'm left with negative 2x equals, then I have 35 plus 15. So if you do that in your calculator or you manually do it, it's 50. So negative 2x equals 50. So the 15s are gone, so I'm done with that step. The only thing left to do is divide by negative 2. So I'm going to divide each side by negative 2. And these 2's go away, and I'm left with x equals, and in your calculator, or maybe you know what it is, 50 divided by negative 2 will give you negative 25. Okay, this one's a little tricky. A lot of students will get this one wrong, so let's just be really, really careful here. When I look at this, I see a negative 3n. So that means that n is being multiplied by negative 3. You really need to be able to see that. Most kids think that that negative goes with the 4, but it doesn't. There's not, it has, the sign in front of the number goes with that number. Okay? That negative goes with the 3, not with the 4. The sign in front of the 4 is not there, so that means it's a plus. So 4 is actually being added. And again, most kids will get that wrong. So let's just take a minute and take that in. It helps if you rewrite it. If I rewrote this, then I could write negative 3n plus 4. Notice that my negative 3n stays negative, and that my 4 stays positive. And when you write it like this, it's a lot easier to decipher. So anytime that you get confused, you can always rewrite the problem and see if it helps you see something that you didn't see before. Both of these are the same thing. We're going to use the second one just because it's easier to deal with, and we'll solve it from the second one. So I'm just going to erase the first one, and I'll rewrite it a little bit higher. So negative 3n plus 4 equals 43. So if you have any questions about that, raise your hand and let me explain it again. But it is a little tricky. I mean, I'm not going to say it's not. So now that we know what's happening, now we're going to fix it. So the opposite of multiplying by negative 3 is to divide by negative 3. And the opposite of adding 4 is to subtract 4. So we're going to be dividing by negative 3, which is division, and we're going to be subtracting by 4, which is subtraction. And if I think in my head, or if I write it down, and I look at the order of operations, the reverse order of operations, I notice that subtraction comes first. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is subtract, and then I'll divide. So subtract, and then divide. So I'm going to give myself some space. So we're going to subtract 4 first on both sides. These 4's go away. And we're left with negative 3n equals whatever 43 minus 4 is, which is going to be 39. And my 4's are taken care of. The next thing that I have to do is divide by negative 3. And these negative 3's go away. And then 39 divided by negative 3 is negative 13. And that is the answer. That's the last one that I'm going to work out with you. I want you to try and do some by yourself. But before I do stop the video, I want to rewrite the next one for you. So look at the next one and try to rewrite it. It says 12 minus 5u equals negative 48. If I rewrite it, this says negative 5u. So I'm going to write that negative 5u. And then I have equals negative 48. This 12, is that a positive 12 or a negative 12? If it were a negative 12, it would literally have to have a negative sign in front of it. But it doesn't. So that means it's positive. So this is plus 12. And I think that this way will help you solve it easier. So don't be afraid to rewrite the problems if it helps you see something that you couldn't have seen before. So go ahead and try these by yourself and make sure you're finding your answer. If you're not finding your answer, then raise your hand and ask for help.